amongst us. May the Spirit of the divine open our hearts to the divine's love. May the Spirit of the divine open our minds to its wisdom. And may we have peace. Amen. Please be seated. We have no children? Here come the children. Hey, David. How are you, brother? Good to see you, man. Whoops, excuse me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do I look that bad? Let's try to raise it up at least 20 decibels. Okay, that means speak louder. Good morning, children.
Good morning.
That's more like it. How you doing? What? You what? What'd she say? What did she say? I'm not sure what she said. That's what people say after I preach. I have a little story I want to tell you all. Just a quick one. So when I was about 5 years old, who's 5 years old? Or older? Who's 5 years old? David, raise your hand, please. Or older. Okay, all right, good. So you'll relate to this, most of you. So when I was 5 years old, I lived in a place in Birmingham that was right next to the high school football field. And back behind our little apartment, there was this wooded area, and they didn't have a locker room or a gym at the high school, so the football players had to come over and put on their uniforms in that little wooded area out behind my house or my apartment. I so wanted to be a part of them. You ever been like that? You really wanted to be a part of that group? Because they were like gods to me. I mean, these were big boys, and they wore those big boy uniforms and those helmets, and they looked fierce. Yes, sir. Well, now, that's an interesting comment. I never thought of it quite like that. So anyway, I figured out I can be a good friend, or these people will accept me as their friend if I give them something. So that day, my mama had gone and bought me a box of animal crackers. Do you know what animal crackers are? Have you ever seen them in the little boxes that have the string over the top of them, you know? So that's what I had. And I went out there, and I said, would y'all like to have these animal crackers? Or share them with me. And they took my animal crackers. And they ate every one of them. And then they threw the box back at me and said, get out of here, kid. Say that again. There you go. Now, I learned something from that. And I think it's important that you learn this too. Jesus taught us to be as innocent as doves and as wise as serpents. And in that vein, what I learned from this story is you be very, very careful to whom you give your animal crackers. You like that? All right, come on, kids. Let's get a. I wish I had an animal cracker for you. Sorry. Fishes. We'll do fishes. What's the plural of fish? Is it fishes or just fish? You want two? Okay, that's a plural. How many do you want? Okay. There you go. Give me a sweet pea. Well, there you go. You like it? What were you raising your hand for? Did you want to tell me something? Me? Okay, thank you. There we go. You want another one? No? Okay. There you go. That reminds me, when my middle daughter was getting married, she had my youngest daughter, Carly, you all met Carly, had her as her flower girl. And so two funny things happened. Kids do the darndest things in church. She got about halfway down the aisle, and all of the rose petals, all the rose petals were gone, and she took a basket and she went, all done, and walked back to her mom and me. And then in the middle, was it something I said? Oh, okay, I get you. Be careful. So in the middle of the service, all of a sudden, she jumps up and walks out in the middle of the aisle. I mean, they're marrying daughter and her husband. She jumps out in the middle of the aisle, and she turns around and looks at me, and she says, "I'll be right back." and her mother reached out and grabbed her, drug her right back in. Pema Chodron, anybody here know Pema Chodron? Pema Chodron is a Buddhist nun and a great, great, great teacher. And she teaches that one of the most difficult things in life is to stay present, to stay put. We have this habit of our minds just wandering off, and we can't stay put. And we're not present to ourselves, we're not present to one another. You probably will remember maybe 5% of what I talk about, just because we can't stay present. And Pema teaches that it is a life well spent and just trying to learn how to stay put. I hope we can stay put just for a few minutes together. You find yourself drifting off someplace else, just say, "Okay, I'm coming back here." It's okay. Y'all have been on my mind a lot. It was a great joy when Kathy called me up and said they're going to be on a retreat. Would you consider coming up and supplying for us? And I said, sure, I'll be glad to do that. Let me see and check my calendar. And sure enough, I had an open date today. So, yeah, you've been on my mind a lot. Not in a bad way. How could I have you on my mind in a bad way? Y'all probably don't know this, but I'm sorry, I'm just bouncing on all the things. When I came up here to assist Steve for the year or so, whatever that I was here, I asked him, I said, tell me about the demographics of this parish. He said, well, simply put, 50% PhD engineers, 50% retired military. I said, are you out of your mind? Calling this flaming liberal up there to be in the midst of all of that? You're one of the most open parishes I've ever known. And that is a blessing. So, why have you been on my mind? Theologians call it liminal time. Are you familiar with that word? Liminal, Liminal. It's not quite yet time. It's kind of in limbo time. We know what's gone on before. We're not really sure about what's happening right now, and we darn sure don't know what's going to happen down the road. And that's where you are as a parish at this juncture in your life. In that liminal, in-between, not quite yet time. We don't know who we're going to call. We don't know what God is calling us to be when we have a new priest here. We don't know this and we don't know that. Let me give you an illustration of one of my experiences of liminal time. I had the great fortune this past year in July and August to spend about 3 weeks in Wales. Anybody here ever been to Wales? Well, then you know what I'm talking about. I'd been all over the UK, but I'd never been to Wales. And so I wanted to go to Wales and see what that was like and visit some of the holy sites and learn about some of the saints of that country. Spent a real nice time with the Archbishop of Wales, Barry Morgan, lovely man. Traveled all the way up to the north, the northernmost tip. And a friend of mine who lives there decided that I needed to go see this little chapel by the sea. Little stone chapel, maybe about a fourth the size of this transept here. Built up into a sand dune. Built in the 7th century by a priest who came there to live as a hermit. There has been a mass said in that chapel every Sunday since the 7th century. Wow. Sacred, holy, filled with the spirits of worshipers, filled with the prayers of seekers. Then I came in down the west coast, rocky, just rough, barren, yet beautiful. So when I got back home, of course, somebody asked me, he said, "Rick, what was that like?" What do you say? So it came to me, it was given to me, and my answer became, it was like walking around in a mystery. Think about that. Walking around in a mystery. That's where you are as a parish and in your own journey. And at this time in the life of this parish, at this time in the call of God, you're walking around in a mystery. Well, that can be very disconcerting. You know, we like to have specificity and knowledge about everything. But it is such a sacred time to come to the understanding, all of us, that we actually know nothing. One of my favorite mantras that was given to me is that wisdom is the gift that is given when we can finally admit we don't know a darn thing. Not a darn thing. That's what I would call humble agnosticism. So as you find yourself in this liminal time of not yetness, walking around in a mystery, surrender to the not knowing. And be not afraid. This is a wonderful time, as I was talking to you originally about learning how to stay put. when you find yourself worrying, when you find yourself in disagreement, when you find yourself just so discouraged, when you find yourself blah, 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 just sit, breathe, be quiet, stay put, and listen. And you will be told. This liminal time is a good time to reflect on a few things, and I just got a couple of things I want to share with you here. There's teaching in Buddhism. Now you can say, is this guy Christian or not? Of course I'm Christian. I'm a devoted follower of Jesus of Nazareth. I don't believe in Jesus. I believe Jesus. And there's a big difference. But I learned from other spiritual traditions, and in the Buddhist tradition, there's a teaching on something that is called impermanence. It is a reality. Let's suppose that there's a river running right through here, and it's rather swift. And I put my foot in it, and then I get ready to put my foot in it a second time. Is it the same river? Because the river that I initially put my foot in is now downstream. That's where we live. We live in a constant state of impermanence. Never the same river. Things are always changing. It is the way of the universe. Jesus understood this. Look at the lilies of the field, he said. They neither tear nor sow, but their glory is grander than that of Solomon's. I spent a weekend studying with a fellow by the name of Rabbi Ravi Shapiro. First of all, it was very interesting to me that I was with a rabbi whose last name was Shapiro. Really? Yeah. That's what his name was. Okay. A little Italian in that family somewhere. Ravi Shapiro taught me this, and this goes with this concept of impermanence. You know, in Scripture, when Moses encounters the burning bush, remember that? Yeah? What does the bush first say to Moses? Take off your shoes. You are on holy ground. And then Moses has a bit of a conversation with the burning bush. And then what does Moses do? What is your name? And the burning bush, an analogy for God, says what? Loudly. Do you hear what he said? I am. Ravi Shapiro taught me that's not at all what he said. He said that is a misinterpretation, mistranslation of the Hebrew. That is simple present tense, I am. And how it should be translated is in what's called simple continuing tense. And thus it would be, I am-ing. What is your name? I am-ing. Now, this is a very different way of looking at God than that kind of static old man in the gray beard that's up in heaven in the three-tiered universe. This is a God, this is a divine that is in process and becoming and is never, ever the same. That'll blow your mind when you think about it for a while. The impermanence of the divine. Can we live with that? It's where you are right now. And God is moving along right with you. A priest friend of mine came to me one day and he said, and this is another thing I'd like for you to reflect on. He said to me, will you tell me what you think is the most unhealthy behavior you've ever seen in a parish? I said, will you give me a couple of days just to sort of think through that? He said, yeah, I'll give you a couple of days. And it was given to me to say back to him, the most unhealthy thing that I have ever seen in any parish is when building a building becomes more important than building relationships. How many churches are out here on Hughes Road? I counted them one time. It's in the teens. How many of those churches have you set foot in? Couple? Anybody over 10? Build relationships. These are your Christian brothers and sisters. These are children of God, just like we are children of God. Don't get to know them. You don't have to believe what they believe. You don't have to ascribe to the way they worship. You don't have to do anything. But build the relationship. So I was talking with somebody recently about, changes and stuff that are going on in the parish. I can't remember who. And I thought about two things that the one or two Easters that I was here, I think I was here 2 Easters. I know I was here for one. There was no way that this community could know what was going on down here in this valley. There was nothing out front, nothing that says welcome, nothing that said when the services are, nothing inviting anybody. Is it more important to preserve this community than it is to build relationships, this community, with the entire community? No. If you believe Jesus, he'd say, get your fannies out of the pews and get out there and start helping some folks. In the Diocese of San Diego, I have a dear friend of mine who is canon to the ordinary there. At the diocesan headquarters, which is not at the cathedral, every Maundy Thursday, they bring in barbers, hairstylists, shoes, a vet, someone or some ones that are washing dogs, food, on Maundy Thursday. That's their Maundy Thursday service. How many acres of land do we have out here? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 unused. Why in the name of God is that place not filled up on Maundy Thursday with people to take care of homeless animals, people to take care of homeless people, people to cut their hair, people to wash their hair, people to give them a new pair of shoes, building relationships. All issuing out of a liminal place. What am I supposed to do? I don't know what's going to happen. Go give a poor man some food. Build relationships. Last thing. Let's see how I put this. So, since I've been away from you, well, really before, I was working with an organization by the name of the Institute for Conscious Being. It was sort of an umbrella organization for teaching the Enneagram, spiritual tool. And we were at one of our training sessions, and one of the activities that we were doing with the students was to sit at a table, interview a person that was near you in terms of their early years and find out something about them in their early years. Well, I was not scheduled to do that. And the person who was leading that activity said, would you go over and interview so-and-so? I said, I don't have time to do that. She said, well, just do something. I said, okay, I'll do something. So it got time for us to report what we had learned in that interview. And everybody went around the table, and of course I had not interviewed the woman. I knew her pretty well. And y'all, I made up this bodacious story about her early childhood. People were sitting at this table with their mouths open like, she didn't. And then when I got through, I told them, I said, it's all a lie. And they just burst out in laughter. Well, after the conference was over with, I got a call from the person who was leading that activity, and she said, I just can't work with you anymore. You don't take this seriously enough. Really? It really bothered me. So I went to see my spiritual director, and I told him all the stuff that was going on with this, and he immediately responded with these words. There's no room at the table for the coyote. What did you say? There's no room at the table for the coyote. Coyote is an archetypal image of the fool, the jester, the joker. What was the name of that cartoon? What coyote? Wile E. Coyote. Wile E. Coyote. As an archetypal symbol, the coyote represents that energy, that force, and that person in whom it's embodied as the one who turns everything upside down. You think that you've got the truth and you know it all. Let me tell you something. Boom, it turns around. You think you can count on that knowledge for the rest of your life and all existence? Boom, let me tell you something. The four most influential people in my life are these: Jesus of Nazareth, Carl Jung, the psychologist, Bob Dylan. What are y'all laughing at? Bob Dylan and Terry Gross. You know who Terry Gross is? She's an interviewer on NPR, National Public Radio. And she is good. You know what quality runs through all four of those people? What do you think? They're all coyotes. And Jesus is main coyote among them. Go home and read your scripture and think of Jesus as the coyote, and you'll see it. You'll see it. So my teaching to you is, during this liminal time, this not yet time, try encouraging and developing the coyote. Try encouraging and developing the coyote in yourself, among yourself, and in the world. He or she will turn it upside down. And you'll be closer to the truth than you've ever been. Anybody got anything else to say? I'm done. Anybody want to